دوستان عزیز سلام عرض میکنم. من عباس میلانی هستم، مسئول گروه ایرانشناسی دانشگاه استنفورد. برنامه ما به زبان انگلیسی خواهد بود. با اجازه بقیه برنامه رو با انگلیسی صحبت میکنم. Welcome to a much belated Bita Prize celebration. It has been more than 2 years since we had a celebration, and this year we will hopefully have 2 to catch up. And this is an auspicious recommencement of our annual celebration. COVID was the first and the second cause of the delay. First, in limits on having in-person events, and then the backlog of delayed events, making it a Herculean task to find an appropriate venue for events at Stanford. In the Iranian Studies program, we are fortunate to have Ms. Roma Parhat as our Associate Director and Mr. Errico as our Program Manager, whose professionalism and efficiency, their congeniality and dedication has made tonight and every other event possible and delightful. I'm grateful to have them as colleagues, and we are all grateful to our student interns and colleagues from SGS, Stanford Global Studies, who are here to help us. Before I say a few words about Ms. Homa Sarshar, this year's recipient of the Bita Prize, a few words on how the rest of the evening will proceed. After my comments, we will watch a 20-minute clip from a documentary by Mr. Jahanshah Ardalan about the life and work of Ms. Sarshar. We have, with the artist's permission, selected a 20-minute clip from his work that concentrates on Ms. Sarshar's philanthropy and her support for Iranian artists. The clip will be followed by a speech delivered by Ms. Bita Daryabari, who has generously endowed this prize and has been an indispensable part of every past celebration. Because of the difficulties of finding an appropriate time and place, and her previous planned trip to Europe, she will deliver her welcome remarks digitally. Her comments will be followed by Professor Gabriela Safran, our esteemed colleague, who is the Dean of Humanities at Stanford University, who will speak on behalf of Stanford and the Division of Humanities and Sciences. She will be followed by Ms. Sarshar, who will, we hope, accept the prize and grace our gathering with her words. After her talk, hopefully time permitting, she will answer a few of your questions. There are 2 mics in the room, and we humbly ask you to limit yourself to 1 question and be brief. This is a linguistically diverse group, and our language for the evening is Persian, not Persian, English. For almost a year now, Woman, Life, and Liberty has been the clarion call of Iran's century-old quest for democracy. It all began when 2 brave women journalists, now both in prison, dared expose the story about the arrest and death of a young lady called Mahsa. The woman-led and inspired movement was a belated recognition of the singular significance of woman in any democratic movement, of the indispensable value of a joyous life rather than a cultish obsession with death and martyrdom, and finally, the indispensable value of liberty in any society. The iconic life of Homa Sarshar is, with no hyperbole and no tarof, a full embodiment of this brilliant model. She's one of the first women journalists and certainly one of the most esteemed of her generation. And long before the word feminism entered the political discourse in Iran, her journalism was defiant and deliberate in championing women who could be role models for a new generation of self-assertive women of Iran. Now, Homa Sarshar has herself become such a model. Always self-assertive, yet also always humble. Doggedly persistent, yet never pompous. unsparing in her inquiries, yet never cruel in her judgments, hardened and saddened by a history of misogyny and anti-Semitism, but not silenced by either. I was in an audience when she read parts of her brilliant 4-volume memoir about exile, where she described how the so-called intellectual editor of the paper she had worked in for many years refused to allow her to translate news reports of Ayatollah Khomeini's arrival in Paris in 1978. And doing these French translations had been an integral part of her job at the paper. And when faced with Sarshar's persistent inquiry, the editor simply said, "We cannot entrust the translation of such important news to a Jewish woman." More than once, I have been in conferences and meetings where she has insisted to be called just an Iranian woman journalist. No wonder then that her fame as a journalist is matched by her reputation for probity and defiance. Her career in diaspora has been no less remarkable, and her ability to surmount not just misogyny and anti-Semitism, but the sinister obstacles that usually accompany a life of exile is exceptional. Her weekly shows, her appearances in other programs, her writings and books, her explosive interviews, whether with a diva or a demonized political figure, are singular in their texture and erudition. She has now kindly donated not just the recordings of all her shows, but her correspondence with many of the most important cultural figures of our time to Stanford University. Included in her generous donation is a copy of the Iranian Jewish oral history that she and her family helped sponsor. Her 4-volume memoirs, with a prose that is pithy and poetic, supple and subtle, beguilingly simple but redolent with rich allusions to the world of Iranian and Western letters, her eyes for the pathos and pathologies of exile, her capacity for irony and compassion, criticism and sympathy reminded me of Witold Gombrovich's 4-volume memoir of exile, considered one of the masterpieces of the genre. 3 centuries ago, Montesquieu, with an early hint of Orientalism, asked, "How can you be Persian and modern?" Had he added the innumerable extra problems faced by Iranian women, the question would have become more complex. But Homa Sarshar's life is a compelling and ennobling answer to that question. In an era polluted by religious dogmatism and pseudo-intellectuals who question whether there is even an Iran, she is a brilliant, defiant, democratic, feminist, modern Iranian woman of letters and a great journalist. It is in recognition of these qualities that she is this year's recipient of the Bita Prize for Persian Letters. Thank you. Now, on to the film.
نویسنده و روزنامه‌نگار با سابقه
معلوماتش رو در کیهان میخوندم.
نویسنده و روزنامه‌نگار و فعال حقوق بشر.
با بقیه نویسنده ها و خبرنگارا فرق داشت.
بعد افتخار همکاری داشتم با ایشون در سازمان رادیو تلویزیون ملی ایران.
هماهنگ کننده برنامه‌های این کنفرانس.
اوایل که من ایشون رو می‌دیدم یه خورده می‌ترسیدم.
تیزبین در دیدن معضلات جامعه در کل و زنان به خصوص.
تنها ژورنالیستی که در این شهر بی‌طرفانه از یک آدم دربند، یک آدم سیاسی که در ایران اسیر شده دفاع کرد.
شما با نام و صدا و چهره ایشان آشنا هستید.
هما سرشار، روزنامه‌نگار، متولد شیراز. از هیچ کدام از رسانه‌هایی که باشون همکاری کردم، چه برای شفار فدراسیون یهودیان ایرانی، چه برای رادیوی امید با آقای گرگین و همکاران دیگر، چه برای جام جم و چه هم اکنون برای رادیوی 670 AM که دارم 13 ساله دارم برای این رادیو برنامه میسازم، هرگز نه استخدام شدم نه پول گرفتم و همش کارهای غیر انتفاعی بوده از نظر من. در این مملکت $1 پول من به دست نیاوردم. 40 سال دارم کار میکنم. خیلی خوشحالم، خیلی بهش افتخار میکنم. از همسرم خیلی ممنونم که وسایل آسایش فکری و مالی منو فراهم کرده که بتونم آزاد این کارا رو انجام بدم بدونی که دغدغه پول یا نون شب رو داشته باشم. خب این خیلی حسن بزرگی است. میدونید موقعی که آدم محتاج باشه میتونه همه کار بکنه و ناچار بشم فشار میارن که آنچه که بهت میگیم رو بگو. ولی در مورد من این اتفاق هیچ وقت نیفتاد و خوشحالم که بگم با کسانی هم همکاری کردم که این دست منو باز گذاشتن برای این کار.
زنیه که میتوانست بسیاری از رنج‌ها رو دور بزنه و در ساحل عافیت بیشتر خوش بگذرونه، ولی این کار رو نکرده و تو قلب مسائل میره و تا جایی که میتونه کمک میکنه.
تنها دو مؤسسه‌ای یا دو نهادی که من عضوش بودم و در واقع بنیانگذارش و گردانندش بودم، مرکز تاریخ شفاهی یهودیان ایرانی بود. به فکرم رسید که زمان داره میگذره و اگر که با افرادی که در خارج از کشور هستند، حتی در امریکا و در فضای کوچکتر در جنوب کالیفرنیا هستن و دارن پیر میشن و ممکن از بین برن، خاطراتشون ضبط نشه و ثبت نشه، ممکنه دیر بشه. ده سال طول کشید این پروژه به پایان برسه. در پایان 10 سال گل و هدفی که گذاشته بودیم که مثلا 100 تا مصاحبه بکنیم، تقریبا 120 تا مصاحبه کردیم با افراد مختلف. الان مثلا حتی 20-25 تا از اونایی که باشون مصاحبه کردیم فوت کردن و خوشحالم که این کار رو تونستیم بکنیم. خانواده هاشون چقدر خوشحالن. افرادی بودن که اثرگذار بودن در جامعه ایرانی داخل ایران و زندگی یهودیان ایرانی در ایران رو، در ایران مدرن رو ثبت و ضبط کردیم. داکیومنتری درست کردیم، فیلم‌های مستند درست کردیم و بعد عکس جمع کردیم و اسناد، یه چیزی حدود 2000 سند و عکس جمع کردیم. حاصلش در 4 کتاب تاریخ شفاهی یهودیان ایرانی جمع آوری شد. خوشحالم که یه همچی آرشیوی الان موجود هست، درسته، همش هم دیجیتال شده، در 3 مؤسسه مختلف، در دانشگاه تل‌آویو، در دانشگاه UCLA و همکنون در دانشگاه استنفورد مورد دسترسی هم هست. میتونن برای مطالعه بهش مراجعه بکنن. مستندهایی که ساختیم در کتابخانه ملی آمریکا در واشنگتن دی سی هست، اونها هم قابل دسترسی است برای کسانی که میخوان ببینن. و بعد از اینکه این پروژه رو تموم کردم، یک گام دیگه دلم خواست بردارم، چون در این مدت واقعا خب با هنرمندان خیلی زیادی در تماس بودم و زندگی هنرمندان خارج از کشور رو دیدم که واقعا افرادی هستن که بسیار کار میکنن ولی در خیلی از موارد اونطور که باید یا شناخته نمیشن یا اونطور که باید از نظر مالی حمایت و پشتیبانی نمیشن. بنیاد هنر رو درست کردم بعد از بستن پروژه تاریخ شفاهی.
کاری که داری میکنه من میتونم بفهمم که چقدر سخته و اون تهیه کنندگیه. همه فکر میکنن تهیه کننده یه چیزی اسمی میاد و میره، در حالی که بسیاری از بارها رو شونه تهیه کننده است. به خصوص که این بنیاد هنر از جایی پول نمیگیره. متوجه هستین؟ یعنی بودجه در اختیارش نمیذارن که بگه خب این شغل دیگه من باید کار بکنم، این برنامه بذارم. بودجه رو خودش میذاره.
وقتی که میطلبت به کار تو رو میخواد، نمیخواد که به ذائقه خودش تو رو عوضت بکنه.
خیلی کار کردن باهاشو دوست دارم. کار کردن با آدمای منظم. هما به نظر بعضیا وحشتناک منظمه. به نظر من این قابل ستایشه.
فعاله. این فعالیتش از همه چیز به نظر من مهمتره. برای اینکه مدام داره کار میکنه. مدام میبینیم یه گروه تئاتر اونجا داره کار میکنه، یه کاری شب شعری، شب مولاناست. و بعد اگه کارنامه‌ش رو نگاه بکنی بسیار پرباره، بسیار پرکاره.
طی 40 سال در جلسات مختلفی، حتی جلساتی که فرهنگی هم نبودن ولی مسائل کنشگری حقوق بشری اینا داشتن، اونها رو هم ثبت و ضبط کردن. یه ثبت صوت خیلی بزرگ، تقریبا سنگین بود، با میکروفون اینها. این رو کول من بود هر جا که میرفتم. از مهمانانی که از ایران اومده بودن، بزرگانی مثل فریدون مشیری، سیمین بهبهانی، خویی، محمود دولت آبادی، اینا که در جلساتشون حضور داشتم، یا به عنوان مجری برنامه، یا به عنوان تماشاگر، یا به عنوان پیشنهاد دهنده به دانشگاه‌ها برای اینکه برای اینها جلساتی رو بزنن. دیگه نوعی درگیر خود این برنامه‌ها بودم، ولی حیفم میامد که این برنامه‌ها ثبت و ضبط نشه. و خوشحالم که این کارو کردم، چون بعضی از این جلسات فقط ضبط صوت من بود که داشت ضبط می‌کرد و خود من این مسئولیت رو به عهده گرفتم که آرشیو خودم رو دیجیتال بکنم. پس از 5 سال کار مداوم که کردم تا تمام آرشیوی که دارم رو، از آرشیو تصویری، از آرشیو صدا، از آرشیو عکس، از آرشیو اسناد مختلفی که دارم، همه اینها رو در پایان سال 2018 هدیه کردم به دانشگاه استنفورد. آرشیو من و همه اون چیزی که جمع کردم که تقریبا داشت یک دونه اتاق کوچک رو میگرفت توی خونه من، به جایی رفته که خیالم راحته که دیگه برای همیشه هست و در دسترس عموم قرار خواهد گرفت.
اون چیزی که برای من جالبه اینجا به عنوان رئیس مرکز سمیل جردن در دانشگاه اروان اینه که ایشون مقدار زیادی از کتابخانه شخصی خودشون رو به ما اهدا کردن. یعنی نه تنها باعث شدن که این کتابخانه تأسیس بشه، بلکه با دادن کتاب تقریبا اینجا رو می‌بینید، همینجوری که میتونید نگاه کنید پر شده.
حسم اینه که بارمو گذاشتم زمین، کارمو کردم. حالا دیگه از این به بعد هر چی دیگه بازم کاری بکنم یا برنامه‌ای داشته باشم یا دستاوردی داشته باشم، خب یه هدیه اضافه بر سازمانه برای خودم. ولی اون چی که انجام دادم و به اینجا رسوندم، فکر میکنم دیگه حاصل عمرم رو در اختیار دیگران گذاشتم، عمر کاریم رو در واقع. چیزی که بیشتر از همه کارهای دیگری که تو زندگی میکردم بهش افتخار میکنم، چون فکر میکردم که این تاریخ زندگی ایرانیان در خارج از کشور، در پراکندگی یا دیاسپورا، یه چیزی که فرزندان من یا نسل‌های دوم و سوم احتیاج دارن که اینا رو بدونن ما چی کار کردیم.
برای کسانی که بخوان در مورد ایرانیان مقیم امریکا به خصوص لس آنجلس بدونن، هما سرشار گنجینه اطلاعات که به درد جامعه ما و به خصوص نسل جوان میخوره.
علاقه وافری به جوانان داره، چه درون مرز چه برون مرز، اما خیلی بیشتر برای اونهایی که در درون مرز هستن زحمت میکشه. دائم با اینها در ارتباطه.
جوانهای داخل ایران مشتاقن که از ما خبر داشته باشن. من ازشون ایمیل میگیرم، ازشون تکست مسیج میگیرم، ازشون پیام میگیرم، ازشون هدیه میگیرم. یه جوونی در داخل ایران که اصلا من نمیشناسمش، مثلا عکس منو برمی‌داره میذاره رو جلد مجله زن روز، برای من یه نقاشی میکنه میفرسته، نامه برام میدن، پیام برام میدن. دلم خوشحاله، دلم آرام میگیره که این ارتباط بسیار تنگاتنگی که بین ما و بچهای داخل ایران هست، این ارتباط ارگانیکی که وجود داره، با کمک رسانه‌های اجتماعی به وجود اومده و هر بلایی که این حکام ظالم دارن بر سر ملت ایران میارن که از دیگران جدا بشن و اونها رو در یک محدوده‌ای حبس بکنن و زندان بکنن، اتفاق نمیفته با وجود این بچهای جوانی که هستن و این عشقی که دارن که تاریخ گذشته ایران رو بدونن. دلم میخواد که به تمام کارهایی که در خارج از کشور انجام شده مطلع بشن. میدونم نمیذارن اونها اطلاع پیدا کنن، تا اونجایی که میتونن دولت جمهوری اسلامی جلوشو میگیره، ولی خب بچه‌ها انقدر باهوشن، انقدر دست گلن که خودشون راه اینی که با ما در ارتباط باشن رو پیدا میکنن. خط مشترکی که در تمام این فعالیت‌ها داشتم در بخش‌های مختلف، یه جمله یا یک کلمه خیلی ساده است: آموزش. آموزش آزادی، آموزش دموکراسی، آموزش تساهل و رواداری. و تنها هنگامی که یکی از میانمان میرود تازه یادمان میآید که میشد او را شناخت، میشد با وی رواداری داشت تا همان گونه که بود باشد، میشد قدر و منزلت او را دانست و حتی میشد او را دوست داشت. چقدر سخت است که من و تو به خود اجازه می دهیم آن دیگری زنده را آزار دهیم، خار کنیم، به انتقاد بنشینیم، مورد ایراد قرار دهیم، رفتارش را به سخره بگیریم، به او انگ و برچسب روا و ناروا بزنیم و داوری کنیم و داوری کنیم و داوری کنیم. به عقب که نگاه میکنم، به آنچه که تو این 40 ساله کردیم، شرمنده کاری که کردم نیستم. افتخار میکنم به کاری که کردم، از اینکه انسان مستقلی بودم، از اینکه اون چه که دلم میخواست رو بگم و بکنم. خودم جلوی خودم رو نگرفتم، کسی دیگری هم جلوی من نگرفت. ملاحظه کار نبودم.
خیلی از تابوها رو شکسته در طول زندگی حرفه‌ایش به نظرم، که برای من خیلی قابل احترامه.
یکی از معدود آدم‌هایی است که حرفی رو که داشته زده.
موضوعات بسیار مطرح و به خصوص موضوعاتی که تابوی جامعه ایرانی و به خصوص جامعه یهودی بود، در واقع میدید ضرورت بیرون کشیدنش از پستوی ترس‌ها و نگرانی‌ها رو حس می‌کرد و بعد دعوت می‌کرد از کسانی از جمله خود من که بی‌پروا نسبت به این مسئله حرف می‌زدم. برای من که از جامعه یهودی نبودم، بی‌پروا سخن گفتن بهای سنگینی نداشت، ولی او که من رو دعوت می‌کرد در کنیسه‌های مختلف، پیوسته بهای سنگین می‌پرداخت و به قول معروف از روم نمی‌رفت.
من گهگاهی به هما یه تذکراتی میدم که در اونجا مثلا یه ذره رعایت محیط رو بکن. حرف منو گوش میکرد، هیچ گونه مخالفتی نمیکرد، ولی اونجا حرف خودش رو میزد و شهامتش رو در اونجا اثبات میکرد.
یک جسارت و یک شهامتی داره که کمتر دیده میشه. جسارتش رو در بودن خودش میتونی ببینیش، در انتخاب سوژه هایی رو که میخواد بهشون بپردازه میبینیش، در نحوه برخوردش با جامعه، اینکه میشه صدای کسایی که صداشون به گوش کمتر میرسه.
آدمی نیست که حاضر باشه ساکت بشینه و یه چیزی رو که در قالب معیارهای فکری و باورهاش نمیگنجه رو بپذیره.
خیلی ها میگن بد اخلاقه و هم هست، چون شموزینگ خیلی بلد نیست.
توی کارم مثلا میگن هوما سرشار آدم جدیه. یعنی چی؟ مگه یک فرش باف، یک استاد فرش داره آواز میخونه اینا؟ نه، مثلا کارگره آره آواز میخونه و میپیچه، رج داره میزنه، روش هم با سنم داره صحبت میکنه، ولی اون که اون طرح رو داره میریزه مگه میتونه وسطش هم جوک بگی یا آواز بخونه؟ نه، جدیه که اون اثر به وجود میاد.
موقعی که وظیفه دار باشه حتما این وظیفه رو انجام میده.
3 زن تو زندگی من خیلی حضورشون شاخص بوده و خیلی مؤثر بودن در آنچه که من نهایتاً شدم. مادر پدرم که اسمش طاووس بود، مادرم که اسمش مروارید بود و مادر خودم نیمتاج. این 3 زن هر کدومشون در جایگاه‌ها و پایگاه خودشون در زمان خودشون زنان سالاری بودن و من از همون کودکی در واقع تجربه زن سالاری رو در این خانه‌ها و در حضور این زنان دیدم. این ایستادگی رو، این مقاومت رو، این کوشش برای پیشرفت رو، این نترسیدن از موانع رو، این که هرچی میخوای اگر که واقعاً از جون و دل بخوای و دنبالش بری بهش میرسی، اینا همش از این 3 زن به من برس رسیده.
در این حال مامان یه زن خیلی سنتی ایرانیه، ولی نمیذاش که اون سنتش جلوشو بگیره که بتونه چیزای دیگر رو بره دنبالش و راجع به اونا فکر بکنه و آیا ببینه که خودش بسنجه آیا این درسته یا غلطه، کدوم یکی بهتره، اونی که بهتره رو من انتخاب بکنم، تا اینکه بگم که نه اینا کورکورانه من باید بگم که اینجوری باید بشه و تموم شده رفت.
هما یک مدیر واقعیه.
یه موقعی که یه مدیریت میکنه یه ایونتی رو، اصلا شای نیست که یهو بیاد بگه وقت شما تموم شد. و این کمک میکنه به مدیریت اون جلسه، ولی خب یه آدم بر میخوره بهش. من خودم همینطوری بارها گفتم هما داره میاد و من دارم میترسم.
توی این 55 سالی که من کار کردم، از همون ابتدایی که در ایرانم بودم تا امروز که اینجا نشستم، بهم انتقاد زیاد شده. از چپ تا راست افراطی. چپ گفته که تو سلطنت طلبی، تو یه ثروتمند بیخیالی، تو یه اریستوکرات بدون هدفی. راسته گفته که تو چپی هستی، تو توده‌ای هستی، تو طرفدار مجاهدین خلقی. حالا دیگه یه سری هم پیدا شدن میگن تو جاسوس جمهوری اسلامی هستی، یه سری دیگه به من میگن تو صهیونیستی، یه گروه از همکیشان خود من میگن تو اصلا ضد یهودی. چون موقعی که از هر طرف بهت انتقاد میشه، گاهی اوقات هم از هر طرف ازت تعریف میشه، میفهمی که جای درست وایسادی.
امروز روز مد شده میگن اینفلوئنسره، طرف اینفلوئنسره، کارهای اجتماعی، فرهنگی، هنری، سیاسی میکنه، با مردم رابطه برقرار میکنه، مردم باش رابطه برقرار میکنه. اینفلوئنسر. هما اینفلوئنسر بوده به نظر من از روزی که به دنیا اومده، برای اینکه این پرچم زندگی بهتر، جای بهتر، آدم بهتر همیشه دستشه و همیشه داره براش تلاش میکنه. تو این 4 دهه گذشته هر وقت هر جا صحبت‌های اساسی یا سیاسی یا اجتماعی یا هنری بوده، هما اونجا بوده که اون چیزی که میگذره ضبط بکنه، حفظ بکنه، بنویسه.
خود خانم هما سرشار در حقیقت یک آرشیو زنده این مهاجرت هستن.
این یعنی یک چیزی که شاید هیچ کس دیگری نداره و اگر هما سرشاری وجود نداشت حتما جامعه ایرانی خیلی چیزها رو امروز نداشت و کم داشت.
و من فکر میکنم همه اینا حاصل اینه که خودمون رو و فکرمون رو و اندیشمون رو باز گذاشتیم برای یادگیری. ما یه عده آدم پریشون، در حال شوک، غمگین، افسرده، متأثر، جان باخته، مال باخته، هر چیزی که بتونید صفتی که بشه به اون دورانی که ما وارد امریکا شدیم و بعد یواش یواش بقیه اومدن، بدونن که این نسل خود تبعید یا تبعید شده یا مهاجر ساده این جمعیت ایرانی امروز نشدن که انقدر اعتبار دارن، بچه‌های تحصیل کرده دارن، تو دانشگاه استاد شدن، بچه‌ها مهندسن، دکترن، وکیلن، سرمایه گذارن، توی سیلیکون ولی افتخار آفرینن، همه جای امریکا. واقعا اینها نتیجه واقعا زحماتی بوده که نسل اول مهاجر ایرانی کشیده. این اتفاقی بوده که تو این 40 سال روی داده در جامعه ما. خوشحالم که بخشی از اون بودم، حضور داشتم در جلسات، دیدم از کجا اومدیم به کجا رسیدیم. از یک گروه خشمگین، عصبانی که تحمل یک کلمه مخالف رو نداره، رسیدیم به گروهی که آروم شدیم. البته پیرم شدیم، موهامون سفید شده، ولی خب دیگه گذشت زمانه. و با این همه این 40 سال برای ما خرد و اندیشه آورده و این چیزی است که به قول فردوسی به نام خداوند جان و خرد، این چیزی است که ما احتیاج داشتیم و الان فکر میکنم در جای خوبی قرار گرفتیم.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to our 13th Bita Prize celebration at Stanford. Before I continue my talk in Persian, first and foremost, I would like to welcome and thank Professor Gabriela Safran, Senior Associate Dean of Humanities and Arts Department. My special words of gratitude to Hamid and Christina Moqaddam for their vision and kind generosity in establishing the Iranian Studies program. And also, I would like to thank Dr. Milani, who is an icon of integrity and hard work, for his leadership, guidance, knowledge, and perseverance in managing and growing the Iranian Studies program. Thank you, Roma Parhad, Franco Errico, and Nilufar Saraj of the Iranian Studies program, who have gracefully and efficiently managed every detail of tonight's event. With your permission, I continue the rest of my talk in Persian. با عرض سلام و ادب خدمت دوستان و مهمانان گرامی. خوشحالم که بعد از وقفه 2 ساله که به سبب کرونا بود، امشب بار دیگر مراسم این جایزه برگزار می شود. متاسفم که به دلیل وظایف مادری از حضور در این مراسم محرومم. هر سال شرکت در این مراسم برای من نه تنها فرصتی است مغتنم برای بزرگداشت زندگی و آثار هنرمندی برجسته که آشنایی از نزدیک با کسی که اغلب عمری آثارشان را از دور تحسین کردم. سخت خوشحالم که امسال این جایزه به کسی تعلق گرفته که هم آثارش را از جوانی تحسین کردم و هم در تمام سالهای مهاجرت بخت دوستی با او را داشتم. از نزدیک شاهد تلاش خستگی ناپذیر او برای ترویج زبان فارسی و همدلی با هنرمندان و نویسندگان ایرانی بودم. می دیدم که چه هنرشناس خوش‌ذوقی است و چه مجموعه درخشانی از آثار هنر معاصر ایرانی را گرد آورده. می دیدم چگونه در هر کار خیریه به نفع جامعه ایرانیان مهاجر به سخاوتمندی همراهی و کمک می کند. می دیدم چگونه در همه حال از حق ایرانیان برای دموکراسی و برابری دفاع می کند. چه در برابر نژاد پرستان در امریکا، چه جذم ایشان در ایران، می دیدم چگونه همه عمر به نرمی ولی قاطعیت از برابری زن و مرد دفاع کرده و چگونه توانسته در زندگی خود همچون زنی آزاده و مستقل عمل کند و هم برای همسرش همراهی وفادار، برای فرزندانش مادری مهربان و برای دوستانش رفیقی موافق باشد. می دیدم چگونه در شرایطی که منادیان نفرت و تفرقه از مذهب و جنسیت و سلیقه سیاسی بهره می گیرند تا میان مهاجران چند دستگی و دشمنی ایجاد کنند و از هر گونه تهمت و افترا حتی علیه پیشگامگان مبارزه با اختناق ابایی ندارند، خانم هما سرشار سرفراز و ستیزنده، بی هیجان و تلافی به مثل و با قاطعیت و احترام به کارستان خود ادامه می دهد. برنامه‌های رادیویی و تلویزیون او، 4 جلد خاطرات خواندنی و سلیس او در واقع نه تنها پاسدار ادب و زبان فارسی در مهاجرتند، بلکه آینه تمام نمای دستاوردها و دستتنگی‌ها، دلاوری‌های بیکران و تنگ نظری‌های ملال آور جامعه ایران در مهاجرتند. او همه را از منظر زنی ایرانی و روزنامه نگاری فرهیخته و آزاده و ایران دوست روایت کرده. او فخر روزنامه نگاری ایران است و دوستی با او بخت بلند من. هما جان، تبریک برنده امسال این جایزه هستی. در هیچ برنامه‌ای به اندازه امسال آرزو نداشتم که بتونم حضوری در این شب فرخنده شرکت کنم. از راه دور با همه وجودم در کنارتم و آمادنت به استنفورد و دریافت این جایزه رو تبریک میگم.
I'm grateful to Professor Milani for the kind introduction, and I'm very honored to have been asked to present the award to Homa Sarshar. My role at tonight's event is to speak from the perspective of the university itself, representing not just the School of Humanities and Sciences and the Humanities and Arts Cluster, for which I am the Senior Associate Dean, but all of us here who care about Stanford as a place where we can teach and learn about people and cultures, local and distant. For us, the Hamid and Christina Mohaddam Center for Iranian Studies offers fantastic resources and programming. In the almost 20 years since it was established, the Iranian Studies Center has offered a constant array of programs. Under the tireless leadership of Abbas Milani, it has sponsored films, talks, concerts, and productions of new and old plays. The center supports faculty in multiple fields and runs an undergraduate minor degree. Stanford is now a place where students can learn about Iranian literature, film, history, and politics, and where they can study the Persian language. I see the programming of this center as exemplary in so many ways. It appeals to students and to the community. I spent a while with an office in Building 260 on the Quad, and across the hall from my office was the room where the Iranian Studies Center would run films. And at first I was mystified when I would stay late in the evening in my office, and I would think, how could there be so many people coming to some talk? And then I would realize it was always the Iranian Studies Center films that would appeal to just an enormous audience. I can also say that I know that the courses sponsored by the Iranian Studies Center are wonderful courses. In another of my administrative duties at Stanford, I actually was tasked with reading the student evaluations for some of these courses, especially, in fact, I think Professor Milani's film course, and the students they love it and they learn an enormous amount. The integration of language, culture, and politics is really exemplary in the Iranian Studies program here, in that the minor requires the students to take at least 2 quarters of Persian, so of the Persian language. So the people who run this minor are not willing to let the study of this part of the world be limited to what students can access in translation. I'm impressed by the way that the Iranian Studies program at Stanford integrates a range of different students, those who are very familiar with the region and have a good level of language, those with more rudimentary heritage language, and those for whom Persian is purely a learned language, an academic interest. This integration is not always easy, and I feel that this is a program that achieves it. I'm also impressed by the Iranian Studies program's collaboration with the Stanford libraries. They've acquired a set of significant collections that our students use in producing original research. These achievements testify to the energy and the dedication of Abbas, Roma, Franco, Nilufar, and the entire staff at the center and at Stanford Global Studies, within which the Iranian Studies Center is located. It is hard to keep this level of programming and activity going year after year. I know this because I spent a few years at Stanford running the Russian Studies Center, and you get tired and you run out of ideas. But the Iranian Studies Center never seems to run out of ideas. I think that the level of programming also testifies to the resources provided to the center by our donors and to the careful use of those resources. So I want to take a moment to thank all of them. First, let's applaud the people who run the Iranian Studies Center. And I also want to thank our donors, Hamid and Christina Mohadam, Bita Daryabari, Hassan and Mahvash Milani, and Shidan and Mehran Taslimi. So you've already heard from Bita Daryabari about the prize that she established at Stanford, that she established, I guess not exactly 13 years ago, but a little longer because there was a delay due to COVID, but more than 13 years ago, this prize that she established in Persian arts. This prize has been given to writers of prose, poetry, and drama, to musicians and composers, and to specialists in scholarship and architecture. Now it is going to Homa Sarshar, a journalist in print, radio, and television, an oral historian, a producer, and an editor, someone who does not only craft her own texts, but works to ensure that others' voices as well are heard and their words are preserved. Let me speak for just a moment now about how exciting I personally find it that I have the privilege of handing the prize to Homa Sarshar. I am the Senior Associate Dean, but I also teach both in the Slavic department and in Jewish Studies. My work in Jewish Studies has led me to meet some of our graduate students who work in Persian Jewish history. These are very talented young people who master multiple languages and who are not frightened by the difficulties that researchers face in accessing Iranian materials today. I know that Homa Sarshar's archive in our libraries has been used by students such as these and will be used by more of them, and I'm confident that they and we will benefit from this research. Let me say something more now about Homa Sarshar's work in Iranian Jewish oral history. I teach courses in literature and also in folklore. My folklore classes especially give me the opportunity to work with undergraduates who are intrigued by other people's words, by the ways that not only in the past, but in our modern world, communities are constituted and maintained through the circulation of verbal art, including songs and folk tales, and also memories, accounts of people's lives. Many of the students who attend my folklore classes are themselves immigrants or the children of immigrants from many different countries. Many of these students can use languages other than English for their research. They have questions about the places that they or their parents left for the United States. And they also have questions about the ways in which immigrant or diaspora communities develop their own cultures and traditions, which are both inspired by the cultures and traditions of the places they came from, and also often quite different from them. In a time of rapid and sometimes frightening technological, social, and political changes, I find that young people want to understand how we can maintain a relationship to the past and to other people. I encourage my students to do research by conducting their own folklore and oral history collection, and also I encourage them to find and use existing collections of folklore and oral history. Every time I learn of another researcher in this field, I know that my students will benefit from their work. Thank you, Homa Sarshar, for everything you have done, and congratulations on winning the Bita Prize. Oh, no, you'll talk from here. Excellent.
I'm very excited, and you can tell. I need a little moment to put myself together. Thank you, Dean Safran, for your speech and for giving the honor of having the Bita Prize from you. Thank you very much, dear Dr. Milani. You have always been very kind to me, and tonight, in addition to your usual kindness, you have been extremely generous. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is an honor for me tonight to receive the prestigious Bita Prize. I'm extremely grateful for this honor and humbled by the decision of election committee. Being the first journalist to be awarded this prize means a lot to me. Finally, an Iranian institution has taken a remarkable step in valuing journalists for their important work, and for that I extend my sincerest gratitude to Bita Prize Committee. I would also extend my deepest appreciation to Ms. Bita Daryabari, without whom tonight's event would not be possible. Ms. Daryabari has dedicated her life to philanthropic endeavors, that in addition to the Bita Prize at Stanford University include the Parsi Quality Center, the Zan Foundation, and her extraordinary accomplishment in humanitarian projects worldwide, as well as her invaluable support for various centers for Iranian studies at many universities in the US and abroad. I'm also grateful to Dr. Abbas Milani, the director of the Hamid and Christina Muqaddam program in Iranian studies, for his unwavering dedication to outstanding scholarship and his remarkable humility in the academic world. His tireless efforts to support Iranian artists, both inside Iran and abroad, make him a true agent of change and a model messenger of tolerance. Tonight, I'm also delighted to have the presence of the Sarshar family, Nejat, Seper, and Human, my husband and my two sons, Homayun Rafaelzadeh, my brother and his wife, as well as my adoptive daughters, Bita Milanian and Dr. Mandana Zandian, and my adoptive son, Kaveh Sanandaji, here. And I'm very happy that you're all here, and many friends who have traveled from Los Angeles to be here tonight and share this special occasion with me. And let me thank also Roma, Franco, and Nilufar for tireless work that they have done for this event to happen tonight. Thank you very much. More than anything, however, I'm deeply humbled to now have my name alongside of those two past 12 iconic recipients of Bita Prize. سیمین بهبهانی، گلی ترقی، محمد رضا شجریان، بهرام بیضایی، هوشنگ سیهون، مهشید امیرشاهی، ایرج پزشکزاد، احسان یارشاتر، شهرنوش پارسیپور، مرجان ساتراپی، پریسا، and کیهان کلهر, many of whom I have also had the privilege to call my friends. It is a true honor to be counted among such esteemed individuals, each of whom have made remarkable contributions to Iranian culture and society in their respective field. The honor I am receiving tonight and my newfound association with Bita Prize and all its other honorees now hold a cherished place among the multiple experiences that have affected and transformed my life over the past 4 decades in exile. As a Jewish Iranian woman journalist, I have faced many challenges in claiming my voice and establishing and asserting my identity both in my motherland of Iran and in my new home in the United States as an exiled Iranian American. Despite this, or perhaps I should say that because of many challenges that I have faced, I have always remained acutely aware that many others continue to suffer persecution, especially back home in Iran, simply for being women. And rest assured that I have not forgotten them. As I accept this recognition, I remember all those women who continue to endure hardship every day in my country of birth, and those still living under despotic regimes elsewhere around the world. I share this award with each and every one of them, and I am filled with pride and gratitude to do so. Over the course of past 44 years, my frustration with the peculiar loss of identity that defines the condition of all exiled individual has become the driving force behind my dedication to human rights, minority rights, and women's rights and activism. I traversed many paths and encountered countless obstacles to make my voice heard and to establish my identity as an exiled Iranian woman journalist. Today, I'm proud of the long road I have traveled in this enriching soul journey, knowing that all along I held my ground firm, that I never compromised my integrity, and that I never gave up on my beliefs and my aspirations. As evidenced by this gray hair, this was no easy task, and in many ways it was akin to a rebirth in new land. In 2013, I had the privilege of being recognized as one of the 100 Ellis Island medalists, an immigrant who contributed to this country as well as her own community. Being the honoree of the 2023 Bita Prize will remain another unforgettable privilege that I will cherish with all my heart. I feel incredibly lucky, grateful, and humbled to be acknowledged for doing little more than simply pursuing my life passion. There is nothing more exciting and rewarding than being recognized for the work you do in your adoptive country, especially when you were considered a second-class citizen in your country of birth, from which you fled in search of freedom, equality, and opportunity. At the same time, it is saddening and heartbreaking that as an immigrant, I find more opportunities to serve my community here than I did in my homeland, a country that has regrettably become known worldwide for oppressing its own people, especially its journalists, since 1979 Islamic Revolution. I must emphasize that I am immensely proud to receive this great award at a time when Iranian women are leading an exceptional and historic revolution in my homeland. Their struggle has awakened the entire world to the events unfolding in Iran. These women possess a remarkable and inspiring courage, serving as both brave individuals and exemplary leaders in their peaceful movement of civil disobedience. I hold tremendous respect for Iranian women and my fellow Iranian journalists who continue to fulfill their duties despite being imprisoned, persecuted, and killed with complete disregard for even the most basic standard of human rights and international law. They each stand as towering role models for human rights activists the world over by standing firm and without fear in the face of the most unspeakable tragedies, and all along maintaining a positive attitude despite the crushing ordeals they face in the streets and at home each and every day. There is no doubt that this first ever women's revolution, led by the courageous women of Iran, will forever remain alive, one day to become a shining beacon of light to guide countless others in the history of humanity. With this in mind, I should like to take this opportunity to shed more light on the plight of Iranian journalists currently struggling under the despotic regime of Islamic Republic. Their struggle for freedom of expression and the right to hold accountable all those who daily violate the most basic human rights under the Islamic Republic persists despite the brutality of this authoritarian government, despite endless persecutions, imprisonment, and involuntary exile and unlawful deportation. And though such actions have had far-reaching consequences for the freedom of expression within Iran, the struggle continues to this very day by those fearless individuals who refuse to give up and continue to keep hope alive for all of us at home and abroad. In democratic countries, journalists play a pivotal role as watchdogs, ensuring transparency and fostering an informed citizenry. The freedom of the press, which is a fundamental pillar of any democratic society, enables the dissemination of information, exposure of corruption, and holds those in power accountable. But all these privileges are categorically denied to the people of Iran, and as they remain continuously under attack by the Islamic Republic. Journalists in Iran often endure persecution when reporting on sensitive topics or challenging the government's narrative. State-controlled media and the government's judiciary system routinely target independent journalists, labeling them as threats to national security or enemies of the state or even enemies of God. Such baseless accusations are then used as pretext to suppress dissident and to silence critical voices. Every day in Iran, journalists face all kinds of harassment, including sexual harassment, intimidation, surveillance, and physical violence. And this oppressive environment ultimately jeopardizes their safety and impairs on their ability to perform their professional duties. As such, imprisonment and arbitrary detention have become par for the course in the life of Iranian journalists. Vague and broadly interpreted Sharia law are used to imprison them, often on such unchallenged charges as the spreading of propaganda, insulting religious figure, committing blasphemy, or acting against national security. Many journalists are held in prolonged pre-trial detention without access to legal representation. When given legal representation, they have no freedom to pick their own attorney, and trials are conducted behind closed doors with no transparency and no due process. Conditions inside prisons are harsh, and detainees endure torture, ill treatment, sexual assaults, and psychological pressure. These increasing risks and pressures faced by journalists in Iran have forced many into exile. The threats to their safety and that of their families, coupled with little prospects for fair trials and safe working environment, leave them with no choice but to leave their homeland and go abroad. Exiled journalists encounter additional challenges, including difficulty in establishing themselves in a new country, language barriers, and constant fear for the well-being of their loved ones back in Iran. This forced exile results in a significant loss of expertise and diversity of opinion within Iran's media landscape, a deplorable dynamics for which the people of Iran pay the ultimate price. Furthermore, Iranian journalists who seek refuge in foreign countries remain at risk of deportation. Some countries, influenced by diplomatic consideration or under pressure, have been forced to return journalists to Iran, where they face even more aggravated persecution, greater risk of imprisonment, and even death. On top of all existing barriers, Iranian women journalists also face unique challenges and risks in their work, as they often navigate restrictive media environments and face potential censorship and persecution. Nevertheless, the powerful presence of Iranian women journalists in the recent uprising in Iran has been heroic and influential. These journalists have played a crucial and vital role in reporting on or documenting the events, providing critical information to the public and the international community. They have acted as important voices, shedding light on the protests, human rights violations, and social and political issues within the country. Their determination and courage in covering these uprisings have been instrumental in raising awareness and challenging the status quo. These courageous journalists, along with other Iranian women activists, mostly Generation Z women and Generation AD, Dahe Hashtadiha, have put Iran back on the world map in a matter of a few months. Through their reporting, these journalists have contributed to shaping public opinion, mobilizing support, and fostering dialogue and solidarity both within Iran and abroad. Their work has helped expose injustices, promote accountability, and advocate for change. And it has ultimately been vital in amplifying the voices of the marginalized, promoting transparency, and pushing for positive changes in Iran. Since Mahsa Amini was murdered at the hands of Guidance Patrol, Religious Morality Police of Islamic Republic, a heartbreaking tragedy that quickly sparked the Zan Zendegi Azadi, Women Life Freedom revolution. Hundreds of Iranian youth have been killed and lost their eyes while protesting in the streets. Several Iranian women journalists have been unjustly arrested for their work and their reporting on sensitive topics or their advocacy for human rights and freedom of expression. According to a recent report by Reporters Without Borders, since the start of the recent uprising, 22 out of 47 jailed journalists globally have been Iranian women journalists, making them 1/4 of total world women jailed journalists. This report also shows that the Islamic Republic is the third biggest jail for journalists in the world. Some notable examples include Nilufar Hamedi, Elahe Mohammadi, Narges Mohammadi, هنگامه شهیدی، نسرین ستوده، سپیده قلیان, آتنا فرقدانی, and Nazila Marufian, all prominent Iranian women journalists and or activists who have made significant contribution to journalism and activism in Iran. They are all in prison now. Nilufar Hamedi is an investigative journalist who has focused on human rights issues, social justice, and women's rights. She had covered stories related to child labor, women's empowerment, environmental issues, often overlooked aspects of Iranian society. Elaheh Mohammadi is a journalist and women's rights advocate who has reported on various social and political issues in Iran. She has been vocal about women's rights, gender equality, and challenging discriminatory laws and practices. Her work has helped raise awareness and mobilize support for these noble causes. Narges Mohammadi is an outspoken human rights activist and journalist who has been involved in documenting human rights abuses in Iran. She has worked on issues such as freedom of expression, political prisoners, and women's rights. Despite facing harassment, intimidation, and imprisonment, Narges has continued to advocate for human rights and use journalism as a tool for change. Hengame Shahidi is a journalist and political activist who has been imprisoned for her critical reporting and activism. She has been targeted for her work in exposing corruption and human rights abuses in Iran. Nasrin Sotoudeh is a prominent human rights lawyer and activist who has been imprisoned multiple times for defending women and political prisoners' rights. Her courageous efforts have drawn international attention to the injustices within Islamic Republic legal system. She is still incarcerated. Sepideh Qolian is a journalist who was detained in 2020 for her reporting on social issues and protests in Iran. She was charged with spreading propaganda against the regime and faced harsh conditions during his jail time. A few weeks ago, she was released, but as soon as she left the prison building, she started shouting Zan Zindagi Azadi and Death to Khamenei slogans and was arrested again after a few days of freedom. Fresh from the news outlet this week, Atena Faragdani and Nazila Marufian were beaten and injured a few days ago in the Qarchak prison, where they both are detained, just because they covered the news of a guard who sexually assaulted a woman in the street for not wearing hijab. These were just a few examples. Many others face similar injustices. The persecution, imprisonment, exile, and deportation of Iranian journalists have other severe implications for freedom of expression within the country. These actions create an atmosphere of fear and self-censorship, not just among journalists and media professionals, but they further to stifle critical voices and narrow public discourses throughout the general public. The lack of independent reporting hampers citizens' access to accurate and diverse information, impeding their ability to make informed decisions and actively participate in democratic processes. Moreover, the suppression of press freedom not only affects journalists, but also undermines the broader democratic aspiration of Iranian society. In conclusion, the situation of Iranian journalists under the Islamic Republic is deeply concerning. It is crucial to comprehend the struggles they face, and it is essential for the international community to condemn these actions and exert pressure on the government of the Islamic Republic to respect and protect the rights of its citizens and journalists. Promoting a free and independent press is vital for the advancement of democracy, human rights, and the overall well-being of Iranian society. Therefore, leaders of free world must publicly express solidarity with the Iranian people and condemn any human rights abuses or repression by the Islamic Republic government. They can also engage with Iranian opposition groups and civil society organizations outside Iran through diplomatic channels. It is imperative for these leaders to carefully assess the potential consequences and unintended impacts of any actions taken. They should also consider the aspirations and diverse perspectives of the Iranian people themselves. Support should be guided by a genuine commitment to the principles of democracy, human rights, and self-determination. Ultimately, no leader of the free world should remain silent about the events unfolding in Iran. As Martin Luther King said, in the end, we will remember not the word of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. The ultimate tragedy lies not only in the oppression and cruelty committed by vicious individuals, but also in the silence of well-intentioned people. However, no initiative, whether new or old, will be effective, and no negotiation will be acceptable unless world leaders genuinely care about the future of Iran and its population. There should be no hidden deals that render their promises mere lip service and diplomatic games. Leaders of the free world, including US, Canada, European Unions, and England, should be aware that by negotiating with this regime, they may prolong its life, but they cannot stop Iranian people in their endeavors and also reaching their ultimate goals. That's why Iranians all over the world are taking matters into their own hands, understanding that no leader of the free world will prioritize the well-being of other countries over their own. It is crucial to emphasize that when a nation strives for freedom and struggles to overcome dictatorship, unity, courage, and perseverance are paramount for successfully toppling dictator and embracing freedom. And this is exactly what the Iranian people are doing now. We all know it's not easy, and it will not happen overnight. But we will for sure see that day coming. Iran will not go back to the days before killing of Mahsa Amini. That's a fact. And as a journalist, I eagerly await the day when I can report. The day that I can report on the triumph of the Iranian people in overthrowing the oppressive Islamic Republic regime and establishing democracy and freedom in our homeland. A day that will be the pinnacle of my career. In the pursuit of freedom, we must remember the word of Nelson Mandela. There is no easy walk to freedom anywhere. As many of us will have to pass through the valley of the shadow of death again and again before we reach the mountaintop of our desire. Let us also recall the word of our beloved Hafiz. در بیابان گر به شوق کعبه خواهی زد قدم سرزنش‌ها گر کند خار مغیلان غم مخور. It is also true that the power of the people is always stronger than the people in power. Thank you very much. زن زندگی آزاد. Please.
So first of all, I'd like to congratulate you and thank you for your activism and being the voice of the voiceless in many instances. Ms. Afshar, I have a question regarding a statement that you made in the documentary. You mentioned that the Iranian diaspora has matured, has gained wisdom, and my question for you is, in your opinion, the wisdom that it has gained, when will it reach the stage where there will be greater unity and concordance and coordination and acceptance of the diversity that exists, but at the same time ability to cooperate for a common goal and a common cause, which you spoke so eloquently about in your defense of Iranian journalists in this particular talk, but I know that you have been a defender of the rights of many. So in short, my question is, when will our wisdom reach the point where we will have the qualities and attributes which allow us to be more united and effective in pursuing the many objectives that you outlined? Thank you.
Well, let me tell you that this documentary has been made before the uprising. It's 3 years ago. And at that time, I genuinely was optimistic that we have matured. But when the revolution happened, the actual uprising happened. Unfortunately, and with a lot of desperation, I found out that that was not the case, at least on the political area. We matured technologically, we matured literally, we matured scientifically, and we learned a lot. But politically, nothing happened. Nothing happened. And that was so heartbreaking when we were all as an observant of this demonstration, and as people who also went to this demonstration, and the millions of Iranians around the world showed their solidarity with Iranian demonstrators in the street. But at the end of that, we saw that politically, the people who were claimed that they are leaders of these oppositions, they are leaders of these demonstrations, they didn't do their job right. So I may apologize for that if it seems that I was giving the intention that we have been politically also matured. This was not the case. And I know that many of you also, like me, you have been disappointed by seeing this. But, you know, that's life. Sometimes you get surprised. Sometimes maybe the way that this happened, it was so quickly, and the decision that they have made, it was so immature that left us all disappointed of what's happening outside Iran. And I think it's right now, nothing has finished. I'm optimistic that nothing has finished. I think that we are a little bit backed up a little bit. We need to take a breath, look, observe, see where and why and how we went wrong, and then put ourselves together and start all over again. At the end, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But for now, there was a mistake that happened, which nobody can deny it. But let's be optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you. If you have an unlimited power, what is your decision making for the world?
I don't want at all to have unlimited power. I'm a journalist, and by being journalist, and being journalist means that you know a little bit and you have a little bit of power in each subject. So, and we are just observant, and we are reporting, and we don't give solution, and that's the good thing about journalists. We should not give solutions. Solutions is for people who are expert. So your question, as soon as you ask the question, you know whose picture came to my mind? Khomeini. I don't want to be a person like Khomeini. I don't want to have power, because power is the start, having ultimate power is the start of being corrupted, and start to be dictator, and start to be person that no one wants, especially me. I don't want. I want to be a little person at the corner and just do my job, and I don't need any power, let alone ultimate power. No, I don't want that.
با درود به شما. I have a lot of respect for everything you've done throughout the years that you've been in diaspora. I hope my question it's not misunderstood, but I wanted to hear your thoughts because I was really puzzled to see in Ms. Daryabari's video that the Iranian flag was hanging upside down. And I'm not sure if that was a gross oversight, but just wanted to know if you had any thoughts on that. Thank you.
Well, that was a mistake. I didn't, that was first time that I saw that. Maybe sometimes also, let me just be a little bit technical. Maybe those friend of us that are expert in video taking or recording, sometimes also when you take a video and you show it, maybe it was upside down or it was right and left, upside down. So that was a mistake that when they hang it, they did a mistake. I apologize for that. And we will let Ms. Daryabari know about this.
من با سلام تنها سوالی ندارم از حضورتون. تنها اومدم خدمت شما سپاسگزاری کنم به عنوان یک شیرازی و ناگهانی یه دفعه یه بیت شعر یادم افتاد. اینو میخوام تقدیم حضورتون کنم. شما اون شعر رو خوندین، من یادم افتاد به این شعر رو که خودتونم یادتون خوشا شیراز و وضع بی‌مثالش. این بیت رو تقدیم شما میخوام بکنم، بگم خوشا سرشار و کار بی‌نظیرش، خداوندا نگهدار از رقیبش. و یه بیت دیگه تقدیم حضورتون ناگهانی میخوام بکنم. گفتم واقعا از دل من برومد که افتخار همه آفاقی و شیرازی و معبود همه، شمع جمع همه عشاقی و معشوق همه. سپاس افتخار ما هستی پره ایرانی و شیرازی.
وای جون همشهری.
جونو. و یه نصیحت کوچکترانی به بزرگتر یه دفعه یادم افتاد. تو صحبتاتون ناراحت شدم که از حرفای دروری بعضی از آدما خیلی ناراحت میشین، متضاد صحبت میکنن. اینم از حرف خودم خواستم خدمتتون بگم که هیچ وقت دریا از دهن سگ نجس نمیشه. بنابراین اصلا ناراحت نشن.
چشم.
قربونتون برم. دستبوستون هستم. همیشه
ماه شما
سلامت
رو
و موفق باشید.
ممنونم از لطفتون. قربون شما.
Hi, I'm wondering what the biggest changes you know of are happening in Iran since, September, October of last year.
The biggest change is the presence of women all over and the courage that they show and the being fearless, and also their peaceful movement and civil disobedience, just by show, but not doing anything violent, not attacking anybody, just they want their own right, the right that is basic for any human being, which is having the right to wear whatever they want, not to wear what they don't want, to talk, to have freedom of expression, to be able to work in the work environment that is anti-woman these days, during these 40 years. And this is the biggest change that we have seen. We are seeing in every single day what the women are doing. Starting from the first Vida Movahedi, who went and just take her veil, the white veil that she had, and started the White Wednesdays. And till today, every single day, whatever you hear from Iran is mesmerizing you, is shocking you, seeing these fearless women, and most importantly, the young generation, دهه 80 ها، دهه 90 ها. And all this shows that Iran, today's Iran, will not be in any way like Iran before the killing of Mahsa Amini. Something totally basic and something totally unexpected had happened. And this regime is in front of Iranian, in challenging Iranian women. They are just, they are speechless. They don't know what to do with this. I think whatever happens in Iran, they have a loophole to use it and to rectify it or to follow what they have been doing. But with women, they don't know what to do. The silliest things that happened, now that they see they cannot force the veil and the hijab on women, they're putting a financial punishment, fine, on women that are wearing are wearing hijab. So this shows that the government is not capable of facing women. And I have, maybe on my book, on my first volume, 2-volume book, Dar Kuche Pas Kujay Qurbat, I mentioned this, that the Achilles Pashnei Ashil, Achilles heels of this regime are Iranian women. And I was, from the day one, I knew that Iranian women will topple this government. And this is no question asked. This is a fact that we know. And I'm waiting for that day. Any moment. I think we can have two more? One more. Okay.
At the risk of being sanctioned by Iranian studies for coming back here, I have a question that's not political in nature. It's related to your profession. You're most well known for your work in print and obviously radio. My question for you is that the audience for these media is an aging audience, and the new generation is using different channels of media, and the role of citizen journalists is rising, and professional journalism, as you have been trained in it and many others, is now in serious competition with the citizen journalists that are acting, particularly in our homeland, as activists. I wanted to know your views because of the stage in which you're in your career, your outlook of how journalism for Iranians is going to get shaped, and how it will shape the way the next generation will become informed and aware and perhaps reach the wisdom that can effect change in our society.
Well, I think 2 years ago, I felt and I thought exactly the same as you're talking to me right now, and that's why I retired. I retired from my job as a radio personality, and I sat down, and fortunately, as soon as I retired, Corona happened, COVID happened. So I was home for 2 years. So I started writing. So you're 100% right. Now the old school of journalism has been done, finished. There's a new wave of young generation that are coming with new wisdom, with new outlook, with new views, and more than that, they have courage to talk. We were just raised in a situation and in an environment that we were self-censored. We would self-censor ourselves because we knew that there are lines, red lines that you cannot cross. This young generation, they don't know what the line is. They cross everything, and they talk, and they give ideas, and they are not scared of talking about what they want. And for that reason, I just bow to them. I respect them. I love them. I love this young generation. I have said that many, many times. And one day I told myself, I think your time is up. You should sit down in your home, at your desk, and write. Write your memories, write whatever had passed during the last 57 years that I was a journalist. And also sometimes I appear on different channels, television channels, those satellite channels, and also radio programs as a guest. I don't have any show myself. And in that capacity, I just try to encourage young people to work more, to come to the scene, and to replace us. So I think I gave you my standpoint for that. Thank you. Thank you, Roma.